A poor crippled boy called Isaac just finished his secondary school education but couldn't afford the funds to further his schooling. He had always aspired to be a comedian and started acting skits, but most of his friends mocked him, telling him that even his condition was enough to make everything boring. Isaac normally was a very funny guy and there was no dull moment around him, but nobody around him could believe that he would take his comedy acting to another level, knowing fully well that he had no sponsors and he was very poor. He was so poor that he couldn't even afford the basic tools to edit his videos, and most of his videos usually came out dull and very boring. It got to the point that most of his uncles told him to stop wasting his time, and his friends now called him the one-leg comedian. Isaac usually felt very sad, but whenever he wanted to give up, he would remind himself that the main reason why he was doing skits was to make money for his poor mother, who was a widow, and show the world the star in him despite the fact that he was born crippled. One day while Isaac was on the street shooting a comedy, a very skinny lady, popularly known as Bone Straight, because she was very skinny and she had no shape or curve as a woman should normally have. Isaac was so shocked when he looked back and saw this lady called Chioma laughing happily and looking at him shooting his skit. Isaac became confused as he tried to ask her why she was laughing, and the only thing the lady said was, "You are just so funny and you are really good at what you are doing now." Isaac began to blush as goose pimples filled his facial expression. This was the first time somebody actually encouraged what he was doing. He just looked at the lady and smiled. The lady then asked whether she could join his comedy crew, and Isaac just looked at her and his face felt sad. He then began to explain to her that nobody had ever shown interest in joining him to shoot any of his comedy skits and that he was all alone. The lady then began to comfort him, telling him that she would help him in editing his comedy skits. One day while Isaac and Chioma were on the street shooting a comedy, Lizzie, a very beautiful, classy, rich lady who Isaac was crushing on all throughout his days in secondary school, was walking with her friends when she saw Isaac and Chioma shooting a comedy. She began to laugh and mock him, telling him that he had finally found a Bone Straight as a partner. She then kept on laughing and mocking him, telling him that that was who fit him, saying that since he was crippled, the only person that could give him attention was only a lady who was skinny like Chioma. Chioma became sad and heartbroken. She wanted to react and slap Lizzie, but Isaac held her back, telling her to leave them alone and that time would tell. Lizzie just laughed and said that if Chioma would have tried it, she would have broken her into two. She just kept on laughing with her friends and walked away. Isaac felt really bad that day and wanted to give up. He began to feel sad, telling himself that maybe people were right, saying that he was wasting his time. But Chioma held him back, telling him that he should not quit now and that this may be a sign that they were at the verge of their greatness. Isaac just kept quiet, feeling very sad as he went home that night. He just laid on his bed, looking at the ceiling and feeling very depressed. He was about switching off his phone when he saw a message from Chioma telling him that he should check out their page now. He just signed and reluctantly checked his page. He could not believe his eyes when he saw that his last video had gathered almost 100,000 views. People were now liking his video because of the fact that he was crippled and acting comedy with a Bone Straight lady. What some of his friends who were now in the university and some of his family members had considered useless was what people now found unique and amusing. And before he knew what was happening, the video began to gain him thousands of followers. Few years later, Lizzie was in her house when her friends came and invited her to a show going on in town. Lizzie quickly put on her best clothes and went for the show, and she couldn't believe who was on stage. It was the same crippled boy and the Bone Straight lady she had insulted many years ago that were now on the stage making thousands of people to laugh. After the show, Isaac and Chioma, who were now guided by armed bodyguard, were about entering their car when they heard their name from behind. Isaac turned, and to his greatest surprise, it was the same Lizzie that had mocked him several years ago. Lizzie just broke down in tears and kept on begging Isaac and Chioma, but he just looked at her and said, "Never you allow your limitations to cover the hidden star in you, irrespective of what people are saying, because the world is waiting for your star to shine."